seated right in front of us. Furthermore, I wish to acknowledge the presence of the Chief Electoral Officer and his entire executive management team. I also wish to recognize my peers, the provincial electoral officers present in this gathering. I also wish to recognize the former commissioners and the chief executive of the Electoral Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to also recognize Lieutenant General Mtombeni, the Provincial Police Commissioner of SAPS in the province of Gauteng, and his entire management team. Furthermore, I wish to acknowledge and recognize the presence of the national prosecuting authorities, representatives of various political parties, independent candidates, the leadership of our partner ESCOM, domestic and international observers present here, partners of the Electoral Commission, the non-governmental organizations present, all diplomats present, members of the Audit Committee of the Electoral Commission, representatives of the private sector, members of the media, and ladies and gentlemen. On that note, may I request that we rise for the rendition of the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Commissioner Judge Pillay to address us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thabo, Program Director. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Results Operations Center for this year's national and provincial elections. We in the IEC have been on a roller coaster ever since the move to amend the legislation affecting elections started. We have had nail-biting moments to get the amending legislation through Parliament, and then the amendments were challenged in court. And once the timetable got underway, we were again rolling with the punches. No less than 17 court cases implicating these elections bombarded us. Our score stands now at 14-0 in our favor, of course. You can applaud. 3 cases are still outstanding. I think one is in court at the moment. And so this weekend, after 111 voting stations abroad opened on time, we were relieved. Relief turned to joy as photographs of 5-hour-long queues of voters snaked the cities. Simultaneously in Chelsea, we hear that South Africa was also winning awards at the flower show. And here's a message from an unknown sender that inspired me to address you today. Good evening, Mr. Kilembe. Everybody knows Mr. Kilembe here. I was following the elections, says this unknown person, for South Africans living abroad. Wow, the turnout was amazing this year. I couldn't help feeling emotional when I saw how many people were in the lines and how excited everyone looked. Congratulations to the IEC for making it possible for those that are living outside of South Africa to vote. Sometimes we forget how advanced our democracy is and what a progressive country we are. Well done again to the IEC. I truly felt proud. You can. And so this message got me thinking, is voting rational or emotional, or is it something in between? And what's the difference between judges making decisions and voters making their choice at the ballot box? Judges hear speeches from lawyers representing litigating parties, and voters hear speeches from political parties and their candidates. Now, although voters listening to a political speech may fall off to sleep on the couch in front of their televisions, but judges dare not do so. Judges have to apply their minds independently, impartially, and dispassionately to all the information put before them, and judges may not toss a coin to choose between guilty and not guilty, and judgments must be reasoned and rational. In this way, judgments are limited, constrained, but so too are voters' decisions. Their choice of political party and independent candidate are limited to those who appear on a ballot sheet. If the voters would have preferred someone else and not one on the ballot sheet, they will have to choose the next best candidate or political party. In making their choice, voters may think and debate long and hard, or they might just say eeny, meeny, miny, moe. And voters do not have to be independent, impartial, or dispassionate. On the contrary, the opposite is true. Voting is intensely partisan and passionate. Judges who are overturned on appeal may not throw tantrums, at least not in public. Voters and their political parties and candidates who lose are not similarly constrained. So as we in the IEC brace ourselves for the barrage of abuse from losing parties, candidates, and supporters, we look to you, our stakeholders, for protection. And as we emerge from this experience of heightened litigation, we go forward reflecting on how 2 streams of decision-making, one through the courts and the other through the ballot box, come together to make democracy work. I wish you all a constructive and festive NPE 24. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Judge Pillay, for those heartwarming and edifying opening remarks. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to take this opportunity to invite the Chief Electoral Officer of the Independent Commission of South Africa to address us. Thank you very much, CEO. Over to you.
My teleprompter is not working, so you'll have to pardon me. Okay. Thank you, Program Director. And let's rest on the protocol that has been established for today. In just a week, registered voters will have a constitutional encounter at voting stations. This encounter will offer each voter a unique opportunity to register a political choice. An election is an intersection between a people and their political rights. This defining encounter is an affirmation, one without prevarication, of our collective commitment to electoral democracy with its salient characteristics of regular elections within a system of multi-party competition. The Electoral Commission is the motive force for facilitating this constitutional encounter for the country. Put differently, the Commission is an instrument at the service of a people to enable a constitutional encounter. This election is about making democracy work or giving democracy a practical face. This is the perspective that informs our understanding of the enormity of the constitutional responsibility we carry. We owe South Africa and her people an election that undoubtedly measures to international and our own constitutional standards. Failure in this regard will have history pronounce harsh sentiments on us and our generation. As we approach the grand finale of this electoral odyssey, the Commission today launches the National Results Operations Center, ROC, which is a theater of electoral democracy, electoral transparency. Indeed, a theater of electoral dreams and political aspirations. Like the biblical Peter, this is the rock on which South Africa builds its house for manifesting electoral transparency. Indeed, a prism through which the world is given a glimpse of the intricacies of electoral operation. Housed at the Gallagher Convention Center in Midrand, this rock will serve as the beating heart of our electoral process. It comprises offices for commissioners, staff, operational areas for coordinating the entire electoral process, political parties, radio and television studios. This rock is the foundation upon which transparency rests. All role players will have appropriate access to system-based reports. These reports will provide a national stage of play vis-à-vis the unfolding electoral process. A matter of substantial import is that the results of each voting station, once audited, will be instantaneously availed to political parties and the media through an application programming interface. This rock will be an enduring symbol of our electoral architecture. Indeed, a temporary monument for facilitating of constitutional guarantees so eloquently elucidated in Section 19 of our Constitution. But this rock will be a platform from which our collective leadership will be tested. It will be a place of political temerity. It will be a ground from where our vaunted love for motherland will be tested. Today, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment as the journey to the election enters its final and most critical stage. An important milestone was reached on 17 May when the first votes in these elections were cast. We've seen throngs of South African voters at 111 diplomatic missions enthusiastically waiting their turn to express their political choices in this constitutional encounter. Although we have no definitive account of voter turnout at this point, preliminary indications are that we have significantly surpassed previous performance. Once again, our gratitude goes to the Department of International Relations and Cooperation and its staff for making this exercise possible. I forgot to do that like the judge was doing. Without this partnership, this constitutional encounter for citizens in the world would have been impossible. Remarkable is the joyous atmosphere created by South Africans at the various missions. The patience displayed also served to indicate their commitment to vote. This is the spirit that we need to take into elections next week. We need to be patient and create a joyous atmosphere at the voting stations, for elections are also about celebrating our common nationhood. The logical progression in the unfolding electoral process is to provide registered voters in special circumstances an opportunity that they too are availed an opportunity for political expression. We have a model of democracy that recognizes the need for those in special circumstances also to record their choices. Our electoral scheme is not an exclusive preserve for the fit and healthy. It is rather a constitutional encounter for all registered voters. Therefore, the Commission will administer special votes from 1.6 million voters on the 2 days preceding Election Day. Pertinently, voting officials will visit 624,000 voters at their homes of places of confinement. 1 million people will be assisted at voting stations where they are registered. The provinces with the most approved special votes for both home visits and voting station visits are Gauteng at 335,000, KwaZulu-Natal 320,000, the Eastern Cape 286,000, Limpopo 159,000, the Western Cape 137,000, Northwest 132,000, Mpumalanga 126,000, the Free State 86,000, and the Northern Cape 83,000. It is important to point out that in addition to our trained electoral staff, together with agents from political parties and independent candidates, as well as observers, are allowed to join mobile teams as they visit various homes. We nonetheless offer caution that some voters may be in dire circumstances and thus request that their privacy be honored so as to vindicate their dignity. As we embark on this momentous journey, we find inspiration in the unwavering commitment of electoral staff who are charged with the actual facilitation of the voting process at the 23,292 voting stations. These officials will diligently attend to the needs of those unable to visit voting stations, ensuring a seamless and inclusive voting experience for all. We've appointed 203,000 electoral staff to administer the voting process. A further 70,000 officials have been appointed as counting officers to ensure the that there's quality in the counting process and the result slips are completed without error. This additional measure is not meant to supplant the role of the presiding officer, but is intended as an additional resource to facilitate the correct counting process. This new feature of the counting procedure underscores our resolute commitment to upholding the integrity of the electoral process. The profile of the voting staff is as follows. 73% are female. 28% is youth under the age of 25. 84% are the unemployed. As we hand over the baton to presiding officers to facilitate the voting process, we also remind them to never compromise electoral probity, which is the cornerstone of integrity. We say to colleagues, remember that this election is not about us, and it is certainly not about our prejudices. An election is about the 27 million registered voters whose political choices we are called to facilitate and record. In this regard, we dare not fail. A ballot paper is a basic commodity in the electoral process. An election without a ballot paper, either electronically or physically, is an affront to the very notion of an election. The Commission, therefore, takes immense pride in announcing the completion of the ballot printing project. Final packaging and labeling have been done, and delivery will be finalized imminently. The final leg of the distribution chain at the local storage sites is aligned with the commencement of the casting of special votes on the 27th of May. Revisions to the electoral system have had implications to the number of ballot papers to be used in this election. As a novel reality, voters will be presented with 3 ballot papers. I briefly outline the ballots as follows. Firstly, the national proportional representation ballot will bear the names of political parties only. This is to be used to restore overall proportionality and thus ensure the outcome of an election is proportional in general, which is in compliance with constitutional requirements. This ballot paper is blue in color. Secondly, the provincial to national ballot or the regional ballot is meant to ensure provincial representation in the composition of the National Assembly. The election based on this tier of the National Assembly will be contested by parties and independent candidates. This ballot is brown in color. Provincial ballots are used to elect members of provincial legislatures. Both parties and independent candidates will be contesting on this ballot. This ballot is pink in color. So if for some reason you forget what each ballot paper represents, at least remembers the color, blue, brown, and pink. So when they give you 2 of pink and 1 of brown, say, no. They need to be differently colored. So given the big number of 52 contestants on the national ballot, this ballot is configured in 2 columns with 26 parties on each side. Now, to negate the inadvertent spoils on this ballot, we remind all voters of the hallowed principle in voting, and that is 1 ballot, 1 mark. So don't think that you are enhancing the chances of your political party by marking it several times. 1 ballot paper, 1 mark. It is a great honor that we welcome a record-breaking 160 organizations which will cumulatively deploy 5,000 observers. This includes esteemed international bodies such as the African Union, Southern African Development Community, SADC, the Carter Center Democracy Program, the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, the Electoral Commission Forum of SADC countries, along with legends of domestic observers committed to upholding the principles of transparency and accountability. Some of the heads of the observer missions are part of the proceedings this afternoon. Excellency, welcome once again. In our pursuit for inclusivity, we have implemented measures to ensure that the voting process is accessible to all South Africans, regardless of physical disability. In collaboration with the South African National Council for the Blind, we have again developed the Universal Ballot Template, which is a voting aid designed to empower persons with disabilities and special needs to exercise their voting independently and with utmost secrecy. As we approach this historic moment, we remind all voters of the general principle that governs elections. A person votes at the voting station where they are registered. The only exception to this rule is for those who have duly notified their commission of their intention to vote elsewhere, that they intend to vote at another station. So it is exceedingly important that you check your voting station before you go on the 29th. And there are different modalities which can be employed to check your registration station. Firstly, through an SMS 32810, through the call center 0800 11 8000, through the website elections.org.za, through the app, as well as through making contact with the local offices of the commission. In other words, I'm saying, don't call and say, they say I'm not on the voter's roll of this voting station, because that you would have checked before you leave home on the day. In conclusion, I call upon all South Africans to answer the clarion call to make one course with a constitutional encounter by voting in these elections. To the media, political party leaders, independent candidates, and all stakeholders, let us all foster an environment rooted in trust, integrity, respect, by setting an example for generations to come. The Electoral Commission stands resolute in its commitment to declaring an election outcome which is a true reflection of the choices made by South African people, the ultimate custodians of our democracy. For it is your democracy and you must truly own it. May the spirit of unity, peace, patriotism guide us as we embark on this important journey, ensuring that the will of the people remains the unwavering commitment upon which our nation's future is built. May God of mercy and love bless us in our electoral project. Ke a leboga.
Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. CEO, thank you very much for the substantive and edifying readiness report. and I can attest on behalf of the provincial electoral officers that we are ready as provinces. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite the chairperson of the Electoral Commission of South Africa, Mr. Mrototo Miepja, to address us. Over to you, Chairperson.
Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, fellow compatriots, friends, partners, sponsors, what a joy it is to have you here this afternoon. It is indeed a special occasion for us to know that we never walk this journey alone. The 2024 national and provincial elections are upon us. As the Electoral Commission of South Africa, we inaugurate this National Results Operations Center for the 2024 national and provincial elections with a profound sense of responsibility and humility. It is a facility that has a very rich and profound history in the South African general elections landscape. The National Results Operations Center stands not merely as a physical space, but as a testament to our unwavering commitment to transparency and integrity in the electoral process. Here, within the walls of this building, this place, which will affectionately get to be known as the Rock, South Africa's commitment to free and fair elections will find its profound stronghold. For 3 decades, this amphitheater of election transparency has borne witness to the announcement and certification of results in national, provincial, and local government elections. It symbolizes our nation's steadfast dedication to electoral democratic principles and practices. I extend this afternoon a warm welcome to representatives from all political parties, independent candidates contesting these elections, and every voter that is registered and will be participating in these elections. Your presence here underscores the collaborative effort required in the management of elections. Throughout this journey, the Political Liaison Committee has remained engaged and ensured that there is no step that we take that is not consulted, that is not open to transparency, and that escapes inclusivity in its process. The presence of domestic, regional, and international observers, the members of the diplomatic corps here, the representatives from the state, that is, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, the traditional leadership present here, organized labor, organized business, the media, faith-based organizations, civil society organizations, and our partners and sponsors speaks volumes about your anticipation of this enterprise that will be unfolding in the next 7 days. Your vigilance in this journey of preparing the 2024 national and provincial elections will remain an immense contribution that you can make wherever you are and whatever you do. In these elections, the credibility of the work we do must be tested and must be experienced. We are profoundly grateful for your commitment to upholding these principles and to helping us ensure that South Africa has indeed a proud 2024 national and provincial election. Transparency lies at the heart of our mission as an accountable electoral institution. It is the guiding principle behind the openness with which our work will be conducted. In this work, we know that integrity is a currency. We are committed to serving our nation with integrity of heart and skillful hands. We do not make this commitment lightly. We ask that you insist on it and help us to attain it. Similarly, we ask that all those who will represent you in this enterprise do so as well. As an electoral management body, the Electoral Commission of South Africa has long recognized that for others to have confidence in the work that we do, we must demonstrate a willful, conscious, premeditated, and purposeful set of measures aimed at the transparency and integrity of these elections. This will form the cornerstone of the work we are going to do. From inception, the planning of the 2024 national and provincial elections has sought to ensure that every aspect of the work we will be undertaking will, in fact, stand the test of scrutiny. As we have traversed quite some ground by now, there is a lot we can show, and I'm sure you can attest to, that has been done, that is now behind us, and we can count on it to indeed say, so far, so good. In our electoral law, every major phase of the electoral process has an opportunity for any aggrieved stakeholder to access relief as may be appropriate before every major phase of the election is concluded. This, in our jurisdiction, is usually done by filing what we normally call an objection. And this is a way in which the role of the Commission in adjudicating disputes is often engaged. Where either party, after filing an objection, is aggrieved, there is an open process where these matters may be referred for adjudication by the Electoral Court. As will be evident from my submission to you hearing this afternoon, there are many phases of the electoral preparations that have been settled almost exclusively without engaging the authorities of the courts. This is a testament to the maturity of our electoral democracy, even at only 30 years of its inception. Given the enormity of the 2024 national and provincial elections, it is worth looking back to see how far we have come with measures we have implemented to ensure election transparency and integrity. At this point, please permit me to mention a few of these measures. The first, we have established a network of voting stations which will serve this nation conveniently. This we have done in a process that sought to ensure that voting stations are not only optimally located to provide access to voters within communities that they serve, but that they are consulted with all of our stakeholders and signed off even as we finalize them. All of our 23,292 voting stations that the Chief Electoral Officer mentioned have in fact been signed off by local communities and are known in those local communities. This is an engagement we take for granted in our nation, but in many nations across the world, this in itself can become a source of major disputes. We are blessed to have measures that ensure we finalize every step of an election before we embark on the next. Second, in our pursuit to provide registration opportunities to qualifying persons, the Commission maintained an online voter registration platform. It targeted areas impacted by new settlement patterns or low levels of voter registrations. It offered 2 registration weekends across the country. In addition, the Commission registered South African citizens at correctional facilities across the Republic and went further afield to register South Africans at all of our missions abroad. It is worth pointing out, thirdly, that voters are registered in areas where they are ordinarily resident. Ahead of the certification of the voters' roll, opportunities were opened for everyone that needed to look at this voters' roll and say, indeed, Commission, you have done what you're meant to do. Objections were received. The voters' roll was open for inspection. Objections were received. They were adjudicated, and the voters' roll was certified. Indeed, no one can come back today and say, you have people on the voters' roll that you did not give us an opportunity to object to. No one can say, you have people registered that should not have been registered. No one can say, we never had the opportunity to raise any objection to that process. The Commission has determined the design of the ballot papers to be used in the 2024 national and provincial elections. This we have done after consulting everyone participating in these elections. Not only did we do so, we followed that through with everyone participating in this election, representing a party or an independent candidate, in fact, having the opportunity to sign off their ballot papers. There are many, many, many other measures that we have taken to safeguard the integrity of these elections. We have designed, specified, developed, tested, and audited the result systems to be used in these elections. All of this work has been done by our own in the Electoral Commission. We have put these results systems to the test when we put them to independent auditors that we procured through a public procurement process to audit them to ensure that they would be fit for purpose. These audits have been completed. Parties contesting in these elections and candidates have been given the opportunity to bring their own auditors to audit the systems as well. And I can assure you this afternoon that where something was found, it would have had to be corrected. This process is completed, and the result systems, as will be used in these elections, are also fit for purpose. There are other extensive measures to validate and ensure the credibility of the electoral process that we have really had to go through with a fine-tooth comb. This includes the voting process, the counting process, the participation of agents and observers in witnessing the electoral process, the signing off of the result slips at every counting station once voting has completed, including the taking of photographs of the result slips once signed at every station. Importantly, all counting will take place where voting has taken place. No ballots will be moved out of sight of the voting station. No observer, no party agent, no electoral staff member will say, this is the reason why this ballot must move. Consequently, all ballots will be accounted through the results compilation process at every station before those results slips are moved and the ballots taken to places of safekeeping. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, every result slip that will have been signed off in the presence of party agents and observers will be scanned into the result systems and will live side by side with a captured result. This is done to make all of you our other eye and audit. Anyone is open to check every result and ensure that not only did auditors audit the results, but that they too have done so and done so well. This will lie open for all political parties, all agents, to see the scanned result and the captured result and to say, indeed, the two match. A lot has been spoken about concerning the rigging of elections. We have not found a way to open that loophole for it to happen in our country. But it's not because we are looking for one. In fact, if we are looking for one, the purpose is to close it. This we do without fear, without favor, and without prejudice. There is a battery of results validation processes and exception management processes that are implemented by management in the Commission. These two are too numerous to mention one by one. Some of them are even more of a security nature to engage in a public discussion such as this. But I mention them because they mean so much to you as voters, to you as parties, to you as the media, to you as organized business, as organized labor, as they do to all of us at the Electoral Commission. We will leave no stone unturned to ensure that these elections are indeed a proud product of the work we can look back and say they are credible, they are free, and they are fair. It is worth mentioning that in elections all over the world, no electoral management body has ever benefited from conducting a test election using real-life political parties and real-life voters. We too have no opportunity such as that one. If you don't create one, you will be like a team of soccer or cricket or rugby that goes into a final without a single practice match. And so, what do we do in the Electoral Commission of South Africa? We have taken enormous amount of measures to generate historical election-related data in our systems and to pump that data to all of the people that on election day will take their places across the nation. We have asked them to go and sit in those stations, in their workstations. And this data was pumped to them on the system for them to simulate an election day. We do so for two purposes. We have to test their ability and skill to manage on election day. But we also have to do so to test the capacity of our systems to handle that data in a real-life environment. This too we have done, and I must confess to you, I do not know many jurisdictions across the world that do something like this. But we are not doing this as a favor to anybody. We are doing this because we are convinced that no election can be conducted in this nation without withstanding scrutiny. We know that every vote will count in these elections, and so we want to make sure that everyone that works in these elections does indeed do what they're called to do. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as the Electoral Commission of South Africa, we refuse to compromise on the legitimacy of the election outcomes. Our rapid response systems stand ready to address any discrepancies swiftly and decisively. The acceptability of election results to all contestants is paramount, and as I have sought to demonstrate, we spare no effort to ensuring that the integrity of the electoral process, in part or as a whole, is tainted. There is a simple thought that goes through our minds when we do this work. We know that an election is a brutal contest. We know that in the 14,903 candidates, only 887 will be allocated seats. But we know that those that win must earn it. And the pride of winning must be one that can be defended. But equally, we know that those that lose on this occasion must lose with their dignity intact. This is work we have to balance and balance intricately. As I conclude, let me reaffirm our collective commitment to the upholding of the sanctity of electoral democracy in our country. The rock, which is this place, must remain a beacon of the transparency that our elections have come to be associated with. We have done better. We have more measures we have taken to ensure that this bridge is never within reach of those that are planning evil and want to sidetrack us in this mission. We trust that you will come every step of the way with us, even as we sweat it out, as we laugh, as we hold hands, and as we celebrate another milestone in this beloved nation's short history. May this work and our country be blessed each step of this way. May we all stand tall and count on one another to make this country ever so proud. May all of us stand firm and say no to the things that will sidetrack us from attaining this ideal. It is tough, but it can be rewarding. It may seem a difficult matter, but it is not impossible. It may seem sometimes too far into the future, and yet we know that it is upon us. As I conclude, please permit me to say that we will not look back, and we will count on each one of you to help us, to walk with us, and to hold us accountable. I now have the singular honor and privilege to declare the National Results Operations Center open for business for the 2024 national and provincial elections. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. As we walk this journey, I think it's important that I take this moment to recognize the trailblazers who are in our midst. I wish to recognize the former chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Judge Griffler. I also wish to take this opportunity to recognize the presence of Commissioner Sistoro Mpumlwana. And lastly, I wish to recognize Advocate Tlakula, the former chairperson and the CEO of this institution.
This is Eyewitness
Ladies
News. You've
and
been watching
gentlemen,
our coverage from the
they can
National
attest.
Results Operations Center at Gallagher Convention Center here in Johannesburg. The IEC officially declaring the opening of elections 2024. Just a few weeks ago, this moment felt very far away, but in exactly a week, South Africans, about 27 million who've registered to vote, will get their chance to line up at polling stations right across the country and decide who will lead the country for the next 5 years. Now, as we continue to, let's have a look at this presentation by the IEC.
To stand for public office, and if chosen, to serve. These rights, secured by those who came before us, give us, the next generation, the foundation to continue shaping our democracy.
And it started in April 1994, a moment etched in time when South Africa awakened anew, where voting queues stretched across our landscapes, a vivid tapestry of hope, with faces of every hue and every age standing together. This defining moment saw us transcend our divided past, united by a shared destiny. A transition safeguarded by the newly formed Independent Electoral Commission, which meticulously ensured the election was conducted fairly and freely. A testament to a resilient people and a collective journey 30 years in the making. Let us recall the surge of joy in 1995, when our once divided nation erupted in a shared cheer at the Rugby World Cup, a vivid emblem of our newfound unity. And again in 2010, as we, a proud host, dazzled under the global spotlight of the FIFA World Cup, weaving our vibrant tapestry of cultures into a grand display of camaraderie, exemplifying the spirit of Ubuntu.
And just as these events have unified us, so too does every vote cast in our elections reinforce our voices. Voices that resonate as the chorus in the song of our nation. A melody of freedom and unity. And if casting your vote is your duty, ensuring the integrity of every election from national to municipal levels is ours. Our mission goes beyond mere administration. We remain committed to nurturing an informed electorate, fostering voter solidarity, protecting democratic rights, and ensuring the electoral process remains fair and precise. Today, as we stand together at the heart of our democracy, we renew our commitment with every ballot cast. One mark, one people united in its right to vote.
With every vote cast, we honor those who marked their freedom with an X before us, safeguarding the present and lighting the path for generations to come, where each and every vote remains a declaration of our freedom.
A freedom we consecrate by coming together once more to transparently count every vote, to faithfully serve the will of the people, and renew our commitment to democracy.
Welcome one and all
To the 2024 opening of the National Results Operations Centre.
And there you have it, folks. We're at the National Results Operations Centre. What you're looking at now is a board that in about a week from now will be very important, because it will determine where your vote is going to place the various political parties, independents also running for the first time. What you're looking at is a live shot from the National Results Operations Centre here. That is where the national ballot, as you see in the centre of that screen, that's where the tally of the votes will be in. On either side of the main display, you will see the 9 provinces. That's where you'll be able to follow how your respective political parties or candidates are doing in various parts of the country. This year is a big one, of course, because we know, due to the introduction of independent candidates, we're going to have 3 different ballots. The IEC has been trying to explain just how that will work. One of the things that came out in the briefing earlier from the IEC officials is that they've seen quite a high number of court cases around the election, 17 in total. 14 have been settled, and in all of those 14 that have been settled, the IEC has come out in the clear. 3 are outstanding, but the Commission is making it clear. In fact, we're going to continue in a moment. Let's have a listen, speaking of the Commissioners, to Commissioner Janet Love.
Thabo, who is our Program Director, celebrating the presence of 3 of the trailblazers. They've helped us. They've built a culture for this organization, a culture of accountability, a culture of transparency. Thank you. You will see here, as you walk through, there are offices that are reflecting the presence of the media here. We have over 1,000 journalists who will be joining us in this exercise. We welcome you, and in particular, we welcome our partnership with the SABC that has sponsored and made this place possible. We also wish to pay a special thanks to Telkom, who have not only helped us with what Telkom is supposed to do, but who have also been really important sponsors to make this place a success. Thank you very much. We also have, as you heard, over 5,000 observers, some of whom are present with us here today, and it is your impartiality and your distance that will help us all to protect what is so precious and to keep all of us who are part of the Commission on our toes, so that we will not only perform well this time, but going forward we will do what the Commission has always done, which is striving to be better and to be at the head of the pack of electoral management. That's what we do. I also want to thank, in particular, everybody who is part of the electoral staff. This is a huge endeavor that started a journey under the leadership of our Chief Electoral Officer and our provincial electoral officers. It is a journey that started 2 years ago. It's a journey that you heard from the judge has seen us having to deal with many punches along the way and a huge amount of uncertainty. But it's a journey that they have steered with an amount of imagination and commitment. It's no mean feat, for example, to ensure that we recruit transparently 273,000 people to serve the voting stations of this country. So I thank you from our support staff, I thank you who are part of electoral operations, and I thank you who have done this magnificent work in outreach on behalf of the commissioners. But importantly, I also thank all of our stakeholders who have helped us to reinforce our conflict prevention and our mediation activities, who are continuing and we hope will continue to help us to combat disinformation, and who have helped us to mobilize South Africans to recognize not only the importance of elections, but also to recognize their duty to vote. I want to thank the contestants, the political parties, and the independent candidates. Some of you have campaigned vigorously, and that too has inspired both public debate as well as an awareness that, as you've heard, extended way beyond the borders of our country to inspire South Africans from all parts of the world to embrace our democracy with joy, with patience, and with commitment. So thank you. And in particular, I want to say to all South Africans, both those of you who are here and the rest of the 27 million voters who are looking at this opening of the rock, we want you to vote, and we want you to appear in all of your numbers so that we as the Commission can fulfill our promise to make the decision, to make the voice of the South African voter the decision that we are able to announce when we declare the election results. That's our commitment to you, and we look forward to that with a great deal of enthusiasm. So thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. We look forward to the next week before we are able to regroup again in order to announce those results. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Love. Last round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. This brings us to the end of our program this afternoon. I wish to express my appreciation to the Chief Electoral Officer and the entire Commission for dragging me to stand in front of you this afternoon. It's been a great pleasure. There are two announcements that I wish to make before we usher you to the banquet hall. If you have lost any item, please report to the security desk, whether car keys, home keys, or phones, or whatever available.
So you have it, the National Results Operations Center officially opened, the IEC now just busy with acknowledgements and thanking some of the various partners who are going to make the elections possible. Voting will happen on the 29th of May, which is next Wednesday, exactly a week from now. Still not too clear on when exactly the final result will be announced, but I do have with us our Associate Politics Editor, Tsidi Madia, with us. Tsidi, what became clear is they are ready, but the IEC is also very aware of how different and how potentially more difficult this year's election will be.
Absolutely. I mean, I got excited when I saw the big numbers board because it's an exciting part of the elections, watching democracy at play, the transparency of seeing how you and I on the ground actually want to see ballot by ballot where you want to see the country going and who you trust with the country for the next 5 years. But it's been a difficult road to the elections. Earlier you said you couldn't believe, a week ago you wouldn't believe that we're going to be here. It's been the most litigious I've seen in the elections preparation period. I've never seen this many court battles this close to the elections. I've never heard so many parties questioning the credibility of the IEC. I mean, even the main opposition, the Democratic Alliance, penning a letter to the American government asking in essence for intervention with our elections, which suggests that the IEC is not capable of delivering and handling the elections of this magnitude. But we've seen them do it year in and year out, well, every other 5 years or so. So it's been a difficult journey.
Right.
And you hear it when you listen to the different commissioners again speaking to those who will not make it. There are over 14,000 candidates. There are only about 887 seats that they're contesting for, saying to them, please, you've got to be able to accept the outcome of this democratic process.
I think Mosotho Moepa used the phrase that even those who lose must lose with their dignity.
Absolutely, and that's it though. I'm worried that we are going to hear beyond the threats. It's not unique to hear after elections people threatening to go to court. We've seen it before on that particular floor in the past, at least at the showgrounds where previously the Rock has been in the past. We've seen lots of parties making threats, but it's never actually gone to a court. Again, I say I believe things are so tense this time around. So many parties are looking to these elections to get something out of them that I will not be surprised if we're dragged to court. But the IEC has to be beyond reproach, and I think they've tried very hard to do so. They've tried to be patient. They've tried to explain many processes in the lead up to this period to many of the political parties.
And it's important, as you were saying, if you missed it earlier, what the IEC has said is that there are about 17 cases which have come forward before the courts in the run-up to this election. So far, in the 14 that have been settled, they've come out well, they've been cleared. 3 are outstanding, and there was a lot of nervousness about whether or not that would force a postponement of the election. Not to date, right? But when you look at where we are, how likely is it that we might see court challenges to the voting process itself once it happens on Wednesday?
I think it's going to happen. I said to you, it's been the most litigious we've seen. They are expecting it. I've spoken to some of the officials behind the scenes over the months leading up to this, and they're weary of how it'll settle. I said to them, I think this is the first election that I think will actually find it being contested in the courts of law. And they say so. That's why every time an issue, Thembekile, like signatures comes up, those who are watching say the IEC's got to be transparent in explaining how we got here. But what I'm also finding is a lot of the finger pointing around what the IEC's done with processes has nothing to do with the IEC. For instance, again, the issue of signatures, verifying signatures, which actually cannot be done. There are no systems in this place. That's a question of legislation. That's a question that must be thrown back to Parliament. It's the legislators who've created a law that cannot be verified. And it's a law where signatures cannot be verified. It's one that the IEC keeps saying can only be remedied by the courts. Then you say to the IEC, but the allegations that some of the signatures were fraudulently secured or obtained. And that's a question, again, they say, well, it's in the hands of law enforcement. At this point, there's nothing that can be done. Of course, I'm referring to that case that's around the Umkhonto where C's were party in those allegations.
Because they administer the election, but they don't collect the signatures.
Absolutely. They're purely here for administrative purposes. And it's that confusion around that. I mean, if the track record is 17 cases, you've settled 14. You've settled 14, and all of those you've been cleared. It says something about how the IEC actually understands its role in handling and administrating these elections.
And you get the sense, CD, I mean, the IEC, for all intents and purposes, has always been somewhat of South Africa's sweetheart during election time. They've got a great reputation. They're often called upon. They boast about being called upon to assist in other countries, etc. But in this election, are they prepared for the level of scrutiny, an unprecedented level of scrutiny, that they are going to face?
I think they are. I think they're weary. I think they've also been taken aback to some degree by the level of scrutiny and the level of allegations, because we are also making in a period of disinformation period, misinformation and disinformation. What you're seeing a lot of is at political rallies, when political leaders are taken away by the spirit of the crowd, they'll make allegations against the IEC. Leaders who've actually contested elections in the past, former President Jacob Zuma is an example, former Secretary General of the ANC, former Premier Ace Makashula is another one, where these people have held office and found their way into office via these very processes taken care of by this very IEC, suddenly going, oh, I wonder what happens, oh, why should ballots be secret? Why? Suddenly they're questioning the very things that led, again,
rules
to
they've known for decades.
Rules and norms that they understand how this organization functions. So they haven't found themselves, like every other sector, they're not spared. The media is not spared from political rhetoric. I think sometimes you can look at it and think, geez, the world is poisoned from the political space, and it's managed to pretty much affect every part of our society. So why would they be spared if you and I, as commentators, as media personalities, are not spared?
No one is safe in this election.
No one is safe, no.
I want to talk about the major difference with this election, the introduction of the independents. That's why we're going to see more than one ballot in this election. It's a national and provincial poll, but there's going to be that difference when you get to the box where you'll have to vote using 3 different ballots. I think it's the blue, there's a pink, and today I think they said that one is a brown.
It looks orange to
me,
but
it looked orange. TD says it looked orange the last time. So between her and Saima Mabolo, we'll have to fight about the color.
The ballots, yeah.
For the independents, right? How do they make the best, those who will make it, of their presence in these legislatures, given that the traditional political parties will still hold majority of the ground, can they make a difference?
They will absolutely outweigh them. It's quite sad almost where something this historic is happening, but it's almost inconsequential when you think about it. I first want to speak even about the campaigns. Elections, Thembekile, are also about money, eh? It's how deep your
expensive to
pockets
get
are.
votes.
Exactly. So if you looked around, you haven't seen a lot of independents being seen. In fact, the ones that you see is because people have gone out of their way, media for instance, gone out of its way to profile these people, to make sure that the electorate is aware that actually you also have this on offer. But even if they got 1 million votes, you're still entitled to just 1 seat as an independent candidate. So what do you do with it? Do we reach a point, because now we are apparently now being dubbed coalition country based on what's happening at the Mrototo. When that happens in the provinces and possibly at national level, that's when I think every seat matters, and that's when independent candidates, I think, might find some worth, is that in that moment you could be swayed and could be utilized in order to win or lose a particular argument, again depending on the numbers in particular legislators or at the National Assembly. It depends on what the overall picture is to see how helpful, how useful you can be as an independent candidate. Some have said they'll use their voice, and then what?
You also
Because
don't
it's
want
all
them
good
to
and
be
well.
co-opted by the traditional parties, because the sense among the electorate is that they want and are excited about the independence precisely because the bigger parties or the parties have failed.
Yeah, I think South Africans have become quite disheartened with what's on offer as far as the established parties are concerned. And I think we're likely to see that in how the voting patterns play out. I must very quickly flag this, and it's something I got from the IEC. In 1994, when they voted, I think it was 19 parties that contested, 14 made it to parliament. In 2019, about 49 contested, and of those parties, again, 14 only made it to parliament. So you will see new parties getting something. You'll probably see the same as far as independents are concerned. But whether or not they're enough to pull South Africans is the question. There are swing votes. You're looking at about 2 million. I think you have roughly just 2 million under or over of swing votes, which could go any way. And maybe some will go to independents. But the core, I think, very much still remain very committed to the very established parties that they're unhappy with. Often you see it with the ANC, the governing party, where people are incredibly unhappy, but will still throw a vote to their way nonetheless.
And for everyone who's just joining us, perhaps joining this broadcast, you're looking at a live shot. If we can bring that shot up, it's a shot of the floor here at the National Results Operations Center. And by the way, this is a different one because we're at Gallagher Convention Center for the first time in 30 years of democracy in South Africa. Previously, CD and I would have had to trek to the showgrounds in Pretoria. That building has completely fallen apart. It's in a shocking state post-COVID, etc. Now we are here. What you're looking at, those seats will be occupied by journalists, by some of the observers. The party reps will be at some of those stations there that you see, those white areas, those white desks are where some of the parties will set up shop, keeping an eye on that board to see how they do as each district declares what has come in as far as the ballot. Voting happens on Wednesday. We're still not clear, am I right, CD, on when we'll know the final results?
So voting first happens on Wednesday, but we have special votes. I'm emphasizing special votes because I'm voting in the special votes. Those are going to be on Monday and Tuesday. Then, of course, Wednesday is the big day. The declaration is meant to be either on the 1st or the 2nd. The IEC is giving itself some time. Of course, you have a third ballot, which means the counting might take a little bit longer in some areas. So as opposed to Saturday night, it might be on a Sunday night, but they've set aside those 2 days for the declaration of the elections. And of course, then the story Thembekile moves to Parliament for the first sitting and the election of a president, because you don't vote for a president, you vote for the governing party, for the election of a vote of a president in there, and we'll come back to Pretoria for inauguration.
They have their president's face on the ballot, but you're voting for a party.
The candidates, yes, the candidates on the, well, not in the case of the MK party. I have to quickly backtrack, right? Because so much is happening with these elections. I've got to backtrack. The MK party, Mrototo, is as the former President Jacob Zuma, and as the Constitutional Court has ruled this very week, he's not fit to be a candidate, not eligible to be a candidate in Parliament. So he is the face, because the IEC says the leader of the party can be the face, but he's not the presidential candidate. They don't have one as yet. They're going to make the decision hopefully soon.
Exciting. Very quickly, I just want to go back to the issue of candidates. By the way, shameless plug here, make your way to Prime Media Plus, because we've done an interesting thing. Our Tabiso Goba, actually, who spoke to about young people who are running in this election. These are people aged between 18 and 19. About 15 or so are actually going to be running in this election. It speaks to youth participation or involvement in the election, and the old theme that we've covered every year, voter apathy among young people. Will that change this year?
I think that there's been an uptake, and part of the uptake in registration of young people has been because of the app. It's easier to register, to participate online. The question will be, will they actually get out of their homes and actually go to the voting stations and cast their ballot, or will they leave us as a country with a question of what do we do about our voting system? Is it not time to modernize it and make it easier for people to vote elsewhere? That conversation, I think, will depend on what the stats are at the end of the day. But the idea that they were apathetic is also been disproven to a large degree. When you speak to young people, and the IEC actually said it's not apathy either. It is feeling disengaged because of not being able to relate to the elders.
None of the options
There's
are
a
attractive.
question, exactly. So there are questions about the era of liberation politics, which have really been a big part of who we are as a country. And I think we're finally starting to see them slowly being ushered out. Seeing such young candidates saying, actually, we also want to foot in the game. We don't want to wait until we're over 40, over 50 to participate. So those things will hopefully mean slight changes. There are younger and younger voters in this country, and it is time that they also take responsibility for shaping and moving the trajectory of where they want to see South Africa going.
Quickly, just to end, things that you will be looking out for when polling stations open on Wednesday, May 29th, and when those ballots begin to come in and are counted and declared on that board, the blue board behind us here that we've been watching.
First thing I'll be looking out for are how well the IEC officials have been prepped. How well do they understand what their roles are? How easy is it for them to facilitate and to make it easy to facilitate and for voters coming in? Secondly, where people being allowed to vote seamlessly. I'm hoping that we'll have less protests, less blockages. Stations will open on time. So how seamless is the process? That's the first thing. I'm also looking forward to seeing what happens with the big parties versus the new parties. I'm looking forward to seeing what South Africa's psyche is.
Will the
about going
polls and
forward.
predictions
Absolutely.
be proven right?
Oh, I
right?
believe they will not necessarily be proven right. I don't believe in the polls. I think that's still a science we need to finesse as a country. That's my 5 cents on that. But definitely, I'm looking forward to seeing what South Africans want around that first and the second. So I'm looking for the end. Looking towards the end, really, Thembekile.
Associate Politics Editor at EWN, Tsidi Madia. Thank you. Tsidi, by the way, will be part of our ongoing coverage here on EWN. You can find us via the Prime Media app. Prime Media Plus app will also be live across various platforms, including our radio station, 702, 947, K-Talk, and 567, as we take you through the election from next week. That's Wednesday, the 29th of May. Myself, Jane Dutton, and the rest of the team will be in these chairs trying to make sense of the seminal moment in South Africa's democracy. Until then, take care, and thank you for watching.